Hey everyone, welcome back to the Founder Series, where we talk about the business of medicine, the biology of midlife, and how to build a life and body that carry you into your next decades with confidence. I'm Dr. Rebbecca Hertel. I'm a board-certified osteopathic family medicine physician, a certified menopause practitioner, and founder of Osteopathic Midlife Health, where we care for patients virtually across multiple states. All right, everyone, welcome back to the Founder Series. If you've ever felt like your body was shifting faster than you or your doctor could explain it, welcome to midlife biology. And what's interesting is, longevity isn't luck. It really is literacy. It's knowing what to measure, how to interpret it, and how to adapt faster than the stressors coming at you, right? So this is where data becomes more empowerment instead of overwhelming. So welcome back to the Founder Series, everyone, where we talk about the business of medicine, the biology of midlife, and how to build a life and body that carries you into your next decades with confidence. I'm Dr. Rebbecca Hertel. I'm a board-certified osteopathic family medicine physician, certified menopause practitioner, and founder of Osteopathic Midlife Health, where I see patients virtually in several different states, about 10 at the time of this recording. So if you're watching this on YouTube, I have this amazing sunlight coming in through my window, giving me this sun glistened. So sorry if that's not visually appeasing. Today we're stepping, a little bit more inside the longevity lab. It's a buzzword these days, right? But really what that means to me is just taking all of the steps, using all of the markers and doing all of the things in order to make sure that you are living the longest, the healthiest. Might be a little bit something different to somebody else, but that essentially is what it comes down to. The metrics, the markers, and signals that can help predict thriving in midlife and longer. So let's get into it. So interesting that when I opened my practice, my telemedicine practice, almost a year ago at the time of this recording, I expected women to come in saying, fix my hot flashes, fix my mood, fix my sleep, fix my weight. And that was what I was hearing. But most of the time I'm hearing things like, I don't know what's happening to my body anymore. I don't feel like myself. And every time I heard that, I felt the same thing. Like, what if the data or the right data could give women some power again? Not restrictive, not to chase perfection, but to help understand what's going on. Because you get women that can continuously say, oh, my labs are normal, but I feel terrible. They come in with fatigue, with brain fog, weight changes, irritability, all the things, right? That classic midlife cocktail, and basic labs, totally within range. But sometimes when you look deeper, you really can see estradiol fluctuating, cortisol curve is changing, fasting insulin is changing, the hormonal score is changing, even though, maybe her glucose was fine. Maybe even the A1C is fine, but over time, it's trending up. If you're lucky enough to get a bone density, you can see that some of that is changing also. So these women aren't fine, but just they're measured differently. And so, if women want to live longer and live healthier, they really need to learn things a little bit differently. Real strategy, context. And so that's kind of what this episode's about. Not necessarily biohacking or trends, definitely not fear, but kind of understanding the levers that may really need to move the needle for long-term vitality and long-term health, improved health as we are aging. So what about the biomarkers that actually predict thriving? They're not necessarily the same orders that your doctor ordered a year ago. The numbers that determine your future health, your mobility, your cognition, and how you feel today. But we can break down some biomarkers that, I really feel like every midlife woman should know, and the evidence behind each of those. Okay, number one, heart rate variability. So HRV measures your nervous system's flexibility. Higher equals more resilient, better stress response, improved recovery. So when heart rate variability is higher, it tells us the nervous system is more flexible and better able to handle stress and recover from it. So in particular, higher vagal-mediated HRV especially measures things like RMSSD. It reflects stronger parasympathetic, which is rest and repair activity. I know that was a lot, but This is part of that nervous system that helps the body adapt, to calm down, and to respond appropriately to whatever stressors it's facing, both physically and mentally. So heart rate variability is really a window into how well the body regulates itself. So a higher heart rate variability is associated with better emotional regulation under stress, improved cognition, or improved cognitive performance during challenges, and more balanced stress hormone responses, including things like cortisol. It also reflects healthier cardiovascular and inflammatory responses when the body is under pressure. So essentially, when HRV is higher, the brain and body are communicating more effectively, if this makes sense. So this aligns with the neurovisceral integration model, right? So, which describes the HRV as a marker of how well the brain's emotion and cognition regulating networks are functioning together. So, from a recovery standpoint, a higher HRV generally signals that the body is well, it's recovered. And so higher RMSSD values are consistently linked to better sleep quality, lower fatigue, reduced perceived stress. And in physically active individuals and athletes, a higher HRV suggests a healthier balance between training stress and recovery, while sustained drops in HRV may be an early sign that the body is under too much load and not recovering adequately, if that makes sense. So in perimenopause, progesterone drops, which can reduce GABA activity, which can lower HRV. And so this can be one reason why women feel on edge. So tracking HRV shows how well our system is adapting and not necessarily how hard you are pushing. Number 2, VO2 Max, your longevity fitness marker, right? So it's a pretty powerful fitness predictor. So let's talk about VO2 Max. So VO2 Max is essentially how efficiently your heart, lungs, blood vessels, and muscles work together to use oxygen during exercise. It's a gold standard marker of cardiovascular fitness, and I'm sure you all hear it everywhere as well. And it is one of the strongest predictors we have for longevity, functional independence, and overall health as we age. It's kind of a big buzzword, right? VO2 max. It does naturally decline with age. It's roughly 8 to 10% per decade, and that decline accelerates after midlife. And by our 70s to 80s, many adults have lost 40 to 50% of their peak aerobic capacity if they're not actively training. But interesting, this is not necessarily a decline that is inevitable. VO2 max remains highly trainable even in our later decades. So in postmenopausal women, both HIIT and moderate to vigorous continuous exercise effectively improve VO2 max with an average gain of about 3 to 4 ml per kilogram per minute. So that matters because every 1 MET increase lowers all-cause mortality. So longer HIIT sessions tend to outperform very short intervals, but consistency and frequency matter more than that exact style. So endurance training produces the largest improvements, followed closely by combined aerobic and resistance training. So resistance training alone also improves VO2 max and offers even added benefits, as we all know, preserving muscle mass, improving oxygen extraction in muscle, and reducing arterial stiffness and supporting long-term independence. Interestingly, postmenopausal women do improve VO2 max slightly less than premenopausal women with the same program, likely due to changes in blood volume expansion rather than heart function. But the gains are still clinically meaningful. So even women in their 70s and beyond can see real improvements with appropriately dosed training. And the most effective programs typically include those that are moderate to high intensity, about 60 to 75% heart rate reserve, 40 to 50 minutes per session, 3 to 4 days a week, at least 16 weeks, with greater gains over longer programs. And importantly, pushing intensity too high doesn't improve results. Progression, recovery, sleep, nutrition, and body composition all play a role in maintaining VO2 max long term. So what's the bottom line here is that VO2 max is not just a fitness metric, it's a vital sign of aging well and one of the most powerful modifiable tools we have to protect cardiovascular health, independence, and longevity in midlife and beyond as we're aging. Number 3 is bone density. Okay, so bone density remains one of the most actionable and useful tools we have for assessing fracture risk. But we know that bone strength is about more than just density. True bone health reflects bone quantity, what we measure with bone density on a DEXA scan, and bone quality, which includes bone microarchitecture, cortical thickness, and bone turnover. We know that in that late perimenopause to early menopause, we have more bone turnover, less putting good bone down, more reabsorbing bone. And that's why we are at a higher risk of osteopenia and osteoporosis during that time. So the DEXA scan is based on bone mineral density. It's still the foundation of osteoporosis screening and decision-making. It's recommended for women over the age of 65 and for younger postmenopausal women with risk factors, and it directly guides treatment. I will tell you my opinion on that is women by the age of 50 should be having that done. A T-score of 2.5 or lower meets criteria for osteoporosis and signals the need for pharmacologic therapy. When bone mineral density is combined with clinical risk factors using tools like fracture prediction becomes more accurate than using either alone. That said, many fractures occur in women whose T-scores don't meet the osteoporosis threshold, right? And so that's where bone quality measures add important context. So some of you may have heard about this trabecular bone score, or TBS, and that's derived from DEXA images. And this gives us insight into bone microarchitecture and predicts fracture risk independently of bone mineral density. So when available, it can be incorporated into FRAX calculations and can be particularly helpful for women with osteopenia, are those hovering near treatment thresholds. It adds nuance, but at this point, it doesn't replace bone mineral density and should not be used alone to make treatment decisions. Advanced imaging measures like cortical thickness, assessed through high resolution peripheral CT, also predict fracture risk independently of bone mineral density in FRAX. And these findings reinforce what we see clinically, right? Fracture risk isn't binary, and bone strength can be compromised even when density looks acceptable. Bone turnover markers play a different role. These aren't diagnostic tools for fracture risk, but they can be useful for monitoring treatment response. So helping confirm medication effectiveness, identifying non-response, or flag adherence issues early. So the bottom line here really is that DEXA measured bone mineral density remains a cornerstone of osteoporosis care because it's actionable and evidence-based. Bone quality measures like TBS and cortical thickness can refine risk assessment, especially in gray zone cases, but they complement rather than replace them. So bone mineral density and clinical decision-making. Number 4, the visceral fat index. Definitely more important than scale weight, right? Visceral fat predicts metabolic, hormonal, and cardiovascular risk. Women with high visceral fat have a 3 to 6 time increased risk of developing insulin resistance in perimenopause. So a DEXA plus a waist to height ratio can give you the real picture. All right, so in perimenopausal and postmenopausal women, insulin resistance increases, and markers like your HOMA-IR do reflect that shift. HOMA-IR can help differentiate prediabetes from diabetes in perimenopausal women and correlates well with fasting glucose, your hemoglobin A1C, and features of metabolic syndrome. So it's really nice as like a full picture together. That said, other indices like triglycerides, glucose index, or your TYG, appear to perform a little bit better, at least in the research that I've done, than HOMA-IR for distinguishing metabolic risk in this group. So postmenopausal women consistently have higher HOMA-IR values than premenopausal women with slightly different cutoff points. So large studies, including the Women's Health Initiative, show that higher insulin resistance and reduced beta cell function are both independently associated with increased diabetes risk after menopause across all ethnic groups. And hormone therapy matters here. Recent meta-analysis showed that menopausal hormone therapy improves insulin sensitivity, with estrogen-only therapy producing greater reductions in the HOMA-IR than combined estrogen-progestin therapy. So we know that declining estrogen plays a real role in worsening insulin resistance during midlife. I see it all the time. But bottom line here is HOMA-IR isn't, at least yet anyway, a frontline test for metabolic risk in midlife women, and that current guidelines still favor fasting glucose, hemoglobin A1C, lipids, blood pressure, body composition for risk assessment and decision-making. When insulin resistance needs closer evaluation, typically in research settings or select clinical cases, broader metabolic markers tend to be more informative than just your fasting insulin or just your HOMA-IR alone. So really, the more information you have, the better. So number 6, what about the omega? All right, your silent inflammation and cognitive protection marker. Supplementation appears most effective in early stages of cognitive impairment. And so among the randomized controlled trials, 66.7% of studies in adults with mild cognitive impairment showed positive cognitive outcomes with omega-3 supplementation. Women and ApoE and 4 carriers may particularly benefit from DHA intervention prior to significant pathology development, and long-term omega-3 supplementation. Quoted in the study was 3.36 grams of EPA plus DHA daily in individuals with coronary artery disease slow cognitive aging by approximately 2.5 years. Interesting stuff, guys. And last, estradiol variability and progesterone stability. We know that estradiol variability is associated with increased symptom burden during perimenopause, and that greater estradiol variability has been linked to worse depressive symptoms, increased sensitivity to psychological stress, and more sleep disruptions, specifically more nocturnal awakenings or nighttime awakenings. In one study, when I was doing research for this, found that 90% of perimenopausal women with depressive symptoms had varying estradiol levels, and greater estradiol variability was independently associated with higher depression scores. Right? We talk about that volatility of estradiol. And that progesterone levels show associations with mood and well-being. Higher progesterone levels have been associated with a greater resilience, higher life satisfaction, and lower perceived stress and fewer depressive symptoms. Additionally, the absence of ovulatory progesterone levels, indicating progesterone deficiency, was associated with higher depressive symptom burden. Sleep disruption during perimenopause also has been linked to hormonal changes, with more awakenings associated with low estradiol and higher FSH levels, though the specific relationship between progesterone stability and sleep quality isn't yet well established in those references anyway. So how do we measure what matters? So let's talk about estradiol, progesterone, free and total testosterone, your sex hormone binding globulin, FSH, plus or minus cortisol. So some of those things can help tell us pattern variability, metabolic changes, mood triggers. In perimenopausal women, obviously, it depends on the day that you check these levels, right? There are some home tools, however, that you can use to like dip your urine and things like that. That's been helpful for some women, or at least when they're feeling not great, they can then look at it and be like, oh yeah, my estradiol is high. Makes sense. Metabolic resistance. So these are things that I like to test, fasting glucose, your fasting insulin, your HOMA-IR score, your lipid panel, your ApoB, your lipoprotein little a, HSCRP, CMP, which shows like liver, kidney, fasting glucose. And what about your bone health? I really love for women in their late 50s to early 50s get at least a bone mineral density baseline. And then after that, every 2 years. Now, depending on if you're being treated, if I remember correctly, I believe it takes at least 6 months to see a change in bone mineral density on a bone density scan. Make sure that you're doing things like for your brain health, reaction time testing, cognitive testing, working memory delay recall, improving your sleep, exercise, and then your musculoskeletal and movement metrics, because muscle is metabolic gold. We all know that. Track things like your grip strength, your quad strength, your lean mass index, your VO2 max, your heart rate variability. Those are really important. And every day I feel like there are wearables that are better and better. And the best wearable is the one that you're going to actually use. So if you take one thing from today's episode, just let it be that, this buzzword longevity is really just about increasing your health span over your aging time period. Some things are measurable, that they are adjustable. When you understand your own biomarkers, when you understand the changes that you can make, it's work, you guys. It takes work to age healthy, that you can start leading your health. And as we're going into now my 2nd year of having this practice, women having information that they were never given, measuring things that matter, and that women in midlife become the most powerful, informed, and unstoppable versions of themselves. So with that, I hope you all, at this time of the recording, I think when this comes out, it'll already be New Year. So I hope you all had really wonderful holidays and a really great new year. And I will see you in the next episode. All right, all. If this conversation resonated with you, take a moment to share it with someone who needs to hear it, whether it be a colleague, a student, a woman ready to think differently about her health and her future. If you're watching on YouTube, please make sure to follow, like, and subscribe. It's the easiest way to support this work and helps this content reach more people, more women who need it. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, please follow the show and leave a review. Those reviews matter more than you realize and help other listeners find the series. You can also follow me across platforms for more education on all the social, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, for more education, clinical insights, and founders content. For clinicians, you can earn CME if you listen to this on the Pinnacle app. And if you want to learn more about how we approach midlife care, hormone optimization, metabolic health, you can find me at Osteopathic Midlife Health. So as always, this series exists to help you think differently about your body, your career, and your future. Because the next decades of your life deserve intention, strengths, and clarity. So thanks for being here, and I'll see you next time on the Founder Series.